research, it requires study, it requires a lot of things out of the artists that they probably would have never thought about in the past. Now they not, a lot of them don't take advantage of it. I didn't for a long time. I slept on it for a long time. Always the guy that was like, oh, I don't get technology and I don't get this and I don't care. Like, I'm just a chef and I just do my thing and I show up to work. And just slowly over the past, I would say the last 6 years of my career, I've really pushed myself to learn a little more at a time.
Welcome to the Music Combine. Greg,
Mike.
It is the day of days.
The day of days,
dude. We have an amazing guest today. Not only is he CIA trained culinary chef, that's not Central Intelligence Agency, folks. That's Culinary Institute of America.
Right.
Not only has he whooped Bobby Flay's ass,
tacos,
but also he is an amazing guitar player and has his own band and is basically the heavy metal chef, or not your typical chef. We are super proud today to have Chef Brian Tsao on the show. Am I saying your last name right, by the way?
I said it perfectly. And what an intro. My goodness. Thank you.
Unless you want to be called Brian Bieber.
Brian Bieber, my God. Like it says on your your Zoom.
It's awesome.
I have a story about that, as well as I have a story about you, Mike. You mentioned I'm not from the Central Intelligence Agency, but once I actually have a story about that. So let's start with how I became Brian Bieber, which I have to totally change that later. I was on CBS this morning or something like that. One of their syndicated morning shows.
Sure.
It was a chef. I think every week or every other week.
You and Gail King just chilling out. I get it.
And we were talking, and I was telling about my time in mainland China, which I lived there for 6 years. I had a metal band over there. That was my first, real band. So we are factually mainland China's first independent touring metal band.
Awesome. What was the name of the band?
Hollow.
Nice.
Yeah, like the Pantera song.
Nice.
Well done.
Very well done.
And we just kind of started like the independent touring culture. There was no such thing in China, but also, you can't just go to a rent-a-car center in China. Those don't really exist. I don't know about now, but back then they didn't. We were also a bunch of young teenagers, so we did our tour on trains between city to city. Some of these train rides were like 20 hours.
Wow.
And I was telling the host on CBS about this, and then I told her I was a musician and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, just like Justin. I was a musician in my teens, and she's like, oh, just like Justin Bieber. And I'm like, I'm a metal dude. Don't you ever fucking put my name in the same sentence as Justin Bieber. Although now I don't give a shit. But it was just kind of like this funny, syndicated television moment that's being broadcasted across the country, and I'm being told I'm like Justin Bieber.
It's funny because the mainstream media don't know anything past what's mainstream. Like that's it. So it's like Bieber, really, Pantera, metal, Machine Head. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's get a little outside the box here, Gail. If that was her.
I don't remember. I forgot her name, but anyway.
That's funny though.
That's how I became Brian Bieber, and I put my personal Facebook profile as that name.
It's good. It's actually one of those things where it's subconscious. I think you don't even realize, but it probably attracts more followers and more people because you got to put what's trending with what's not trending and kind of match them up. And you're impressive too, by the way. So we're just starting out our podcast. Maybe we're on our 4th, 5th month now, Mike?
Yeah, this will be the 26th real episode. So your 27th episode, I think, essentially somewhere in there. But we just finished our 25th.
So when we look at, people that were interviewed, we look at their profile, we see what they're doing, and like you're making moves, man. So thank you for being on the show again. And let's dive into it a little bit. So you said you had a story after the Bieber, which was the Central Intelligence.
I have a tendency to tell a lot of stories, so please feel free to.
Yeah, no, go ahead. We like them.
Please.
Tangent. So I had a personal trainer at one point in my life. And I told this guy, we were just kind of shooting the shit, and he's like, "Oh, where'd you go to school? And what do you do?" And I said, I went to the CIA. And there were two main trainers that I work with. So the smarter trainer, I told him I went to the Culinary Institute, I went to the CIA. And then there's another trainer who's like just pure meathead, just pure pro type of dude. And the smart one and the bro one day proceed to have a conversation about me because, I'm the chef, I beat Bobby Flay, and they're just kind of chit-chatting about me. So the smart one proceeds to tell the dumb one, the bro, he's from the CIA, right? And this guy just totally bought into it. So
right.
The chef thing is a cover so he can get into like an underground like prostitution ring or something to that effect. And he just told this guy, the bro, this story and just kind of never followed up on it. The next time he's training with me, he's like, "Hey, so the other trainer told me," and I'm like, "What?" He's like, "You're CIA," and I'm like, I guess, I'm like, what the fuck does it matter to you? And then finally I had to like, "Are you thinking the Central Intelligence Agency?" He's like, "Yeah, that's where you came from, right?" I'm like, "No, I'm from the Culinary Institute of America." And
that's a great CIA cover though.
That's almost like you watch the Simpsons episodes and it's like the flower truck parked outside is "Flowers by Irene." Like stuff like that.
What was the other one? FBI that? Oh yeah, Flowers by
Irene.
Yeah, there you go. But you got to understand, like, that is a great cover. Yeah, I work for the CIA, Culinary Institute Academy or America. Is that what it is? Academy or
Culinary Institute of America.
America.
Okay, because the of is not. It's a little confusing, but yeah, it's a good cover regardless. But so you had before Mr. Flay, you beat him. You were working your way up all over the world. You were visiting different countries and getting cultivated in the culture.
Yeah, so I mean that's a whole podcast in itself, but really the quick version is I was born and raised in the States until I was stayed here until I was like 14 years old, and my dad sent me to school in Beijing, China.
Wow.
I wasn't really a bad kid, but not particularly a good kid. I was just kind of like just existing, so to speak. I didn't really have much ambition or anything. So my dad thought it would be a great idea. And also I was doing terribly in school. Like school was just not for me. So he figured, he's probably going to go to China and also not do good in school, but at least he gets to connect a bit with his culture. He gets to see something else in the world other than Flushing, Queens.
Right.
Nice. And I stayed in Flushing, Queens. Not in Flushing. I'm sorry. I moved to Beijing. What was supposed to be a 1-year exchange program turned into 6 years. And while I was there, I went to an international school. So I was going to school with kids from Russia, from Germany, from France, from Canada, from Australia, just South Africa. I got to really meet a wide variety of people, as well as get exposed to a lot of different cultures and cuisines. And I really distinctly remember China kind of being the first time I was exposed to the world of different cuisines. So yeah, I lived in China for 6 years, eventually came back due to, the classic sex, drugs, rock and roll. Like I said, that would be an entire podcast unto itself. But came back to the States and I needed a job. I was in, for the summer, I was enrolled into John Jay School of Criminal Justice. I thought I was going to try to become a cop because that was a job field I was always thinking of getting into, which considering the times right now, it's kind of good. It didn't work out that way. Yeah. But I asked my father, who is, a very resourceful and well-connected man. And I said, "Do you know anyone that's hiring?" He said, "Indeed, I do. I know a man who owns a pastry factory and I'm sure I can get you a job with him." So I took a job as a dishwasher and the rest is history. Here we are today.
Wow. And working your way up from that to where you are now.
So what I find interesting is that you've combined my two things, which I don't find usually with people, which is like metal and guitars and cooking.
Mm.
And where did the passion, because I mean, they're both very artistic, but people don't realize. Everyone goes, oh, you follow a recipe and you make a dish and that's it. When I go into a kitchen for myself, you know, if I want to learn how to make a beurre blanc sauce or something of that nature, like there's a lot of artistry behind it. And there's almost like a lot of symphony conducting behind it when you're actually creating a recipe or things of that nature. Was it really the music came first and then kind of, or do you feel like those two things go hand in hand for you?
Well, first off, I got to say you hit the nail on the head about cooking is like a symphony. And I constantly make references to music when I'm teaching young cooks or when I'm trying to explain what I'm trying to accomplish behind a dish or a certain technique. I always refer to scales and you know,
chord mixing, like mixing it's almost like mixing a record because people think, oh, I'm going to technically mix something.
Well, how off? Right. Exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's really mixing is about placing it like as if it was an orchestra.
Yep.
Like the way music was traditionally written in the Baroque times or whatever, it was written so that each piece dynamically fit where it was without any kind of sound reinforcement.
Right. Exactly.
You know?
How many times do you watch like a YouTube channel about mixing and mastering uses food references all the time?
Sure.
I think they go hand in hand. They're both very artistic and they're both certainly very much disciplines and lifestyles. I'm sorry, I lost track of what the initial question.
Oh, my thing is that, you know, when you look at the music portion of it, or you look at the cooking portion of it, kind of you answer the question, you know, do you look at it as like a symphony?
Right. Well, I think
how did that come to you? Was it like cart before the horse, or the horse before the cart?
Right. And also I think another part to your question was like, what came first, right? And I mean, certainly cooking came first only because I started cooking at a very young age. But, you know, I think I cooked my first over easy eggs at like 5 years old out of necessity because I was often left home alone. You know, no fault of my parents. They were just working a lot and always busy. My dad is going to die working. I already know it. He's never going to retire.
Well, that will keep him alive longer.
Yeah, it's keeping him healthy. I started cooking at a very young age, and I was always very good at cooking for myself and cooking for others. My family has, you know, both sides of my family have a very strong emphasis on eating, you know, as many families do. You know, that's the thing that brings us together, whether it's we're eating out or celebrating someone's birthday, having a barbecue because of someone's birthday, our house becoming often the place to have Thanksgiving dinner, and we'll do Christmas dinner. So food and cooking was always a part of my life. And my mom basically cooked every day of the week. You know, she was a housewife. And I got exposed to a lot of cooking. However, that did not, I had no aspirations to be a chef. You know, how I fell into the chefing world was completely by random. It was just a chance encounter that I happened to latch onto. And the energy required and the discipline required was just what I needed at that particular time in my life. And served me very well to this day. As far as music goes, I was always a very artistic kid. You know, I, for the longest time, thought I was going to be a comic book artist. That's what I want. That's what my life was about. I was all about.
You're a good artist too? You draw?
I don't draw anymore, and I haven't drawn, you know, like put any effort into drawing for 20 years. I don't even remember why I stopped drawing, but that's what my life aspiration was through elementary to middle school. Was I thought I was going to be a comic book artist. That's all I cared about. But that really changed when I started getting into music, which was, you know, during the 90s and the alternative era with, you know, bands like Garbage and Green Day and Nirvana, of course, you know, the whole grunge thing. And my taste progressively got heavier. You know, I got super into Marilyn Manson. Then the new metal thing happened. And that, you know, while it's not so much now today, but, you know, only a year or two ago was completely frowned upon. But that was my exposure to heavy music. Like if it wasn't for Limp Bizkit, I would have never discovered Metallica and Slayer, and thus never have discovered Cannibal Corpse and Deicide, and thus, and you can kind of
That's going down the rabbit hole right there. You start with something a little more mainstream, and then you start digging in a little bit and seeing where
you just basically follow the whole movie of Headbanger's journey through Limp Bizkit, just reverse engineer it. Right?
Yeah, just reverse engineer that shit. Yeah.
I got into music at 12, 13 years old, but I distinctly remember getting into heavy music. And that was kind of like jumping off the cliff. Like my life completely changed. The things I was interested in completely changed once I started listening to Limp Bizkit and Korn and, Orgy and a variety of other new metal bands at the time. Which, funny enough, I recently just kind of put on some of that stuff for kicks, and
dude, there's nothing better than that first Korn record.
I agree. It's great.
I like first Orgy record. Like people sleep on Orgy. I'm sorry. I like that song Stitches.
Yeah.
To the day I die. Like that's a great fucking tune.
Listen, they were on the radio. They did it. So can't deny it, just a preference at this point. But, when you start diving deeper into those bands' influences and like just, you said Cannibal Corpse. I mean, Chris Barnes, like that guy's no joke. You know how I found about Cannibal Corpse? Ace Ventura.
Yes.
Because they're in the club scene.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember watching Ace Ventura way before I got into metal, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool," but I just had no way to like find out more information because none of my other friends were in.
How about White Zombie though? I watched Airheads and like Chris Farley going into the club and he pulls the guy's nipple. He's like improvise, pulls the guy's nipple out. But the Rob Zombies and White Zombies playing on stage. That's how I found out about White Zombie. Go figure. But like I listened to Focus today, and that's a fucking heavy song, dude. So like and you're an original artist. So your band toured in China for months, years, or how old were you then?
I was
15. It says in your bio
17.
Yeah.
When that
You
band
went back.
I'm sorry.
You went back to China and did that, or this is from?
That was my initial 6-year stint in China. So I was there for a total of 6 years. So I think the band was together for anywhere from 3 to 4 years, something like that. And the highlight of where it really capped off was that tour. And I just was kind of getting too deep into drugs and alcohol at that point and needed a change of lifestyle. But we'll get in, we can get into that later, but I don't want to focus on that. I don't mind sharing about it though.
Sure. It's but the fans over there are they're so much more appreciative, I think, of really heavy music, right?
Are they so much more appreciative of what they can get? When I was living there, Deep Purple had come around, but it was like in an auditorium, so it's not like people can jump around and like mosh if they wanted to or something like that. It was all very just appropriate and woo.
Right. But you guys, those guys, they want to just fucking headbang and fucking get into it.
When we played shows, man, we definitely brought a very different sound. We were very metalcore-ish. Local magazines there labeled us thrashcore because we were definitely more thrashy. But our shows were fucking violent and just totally insane. And things just completely changed when we hit the stage, because at that point in the Chinese metal scene, either you were just like a carbon copy of Mayhem or a carbon copy of Metallica, so on and so forth, or a carbon copy of Limp Bizkit. There was no like originality to the sound, and what we brought was just just a mishmash of all our influences. And I guess that could be said about any band, but my particular band was unique because we had 2 Chinese locals, 2 German international students, and myself. And obviously myself and the 2 German kids are bringing complete different influences that the original we're not exposed to. So we really it fired off with a bang, and we did really well for ourselves, but there was just no future for us in it because of the media censorship and all that type of stuff in China. I kind of
it's weird. So I work my day job as a financial advisor for artists, and they tried to open an office in China, which was a great idea on paper. But when they got there, it was like they couldn't have gatherings more than 10 people without knowing who everyone was. And like, I heard a lot of crazy stuff like that.
How long ago was this, if you don't mind me asking?
Maybe 5-10 years ago.
Okay. So when I was in China about 16, 17 years ago, my chef years, like 16. Yeah, so about 16, 17 years ago. You definitely could have established an office then without too much government interference.
Right.
They would have kept tabs on you, but not like today. Today is it's just completely a different animal, and that's a whole nother topic. But there's just, I kind of saw the writing on the wall even when I was living there all those years ago. I just knew that this was not going to get past a certain point, and I just couldn't deal with that. So like I said, I decided to leave.
Yeah, you gotta look at the forest through the trees and see if it's even available.
Right. Basically, it's crazy because they will let you. At the time, I don't know about now. Actually, I know it's completely different now. But at the time, they basically let you do whatever the fuck you want to any capacity you want until they don't like it, and then they will just put a big fucking boot on top of it and stamp you out like a piece of garbage or like an ant. They just merciless, and I've seen it over and over. Not in music, but the bar streets, the popular bar streets that were frequented by a lot of international people that, slowly a drug problem would start to brew. And I tell you, man, I would see like if 100 cops come in and just completely raid the entire street, and just maybe 3 months later, the entire street was knocked down. I mean, knocked down to the ground. I ran on treadmills in gyms, at like big hotels because they had much nicer gyms, and they would have access to like BBC, international TV. So I would watch the BBC, and it was this particular day happened to be on the Tiananmen Square massacre, and I'm just jogging on my treadmill, and then fucking the screen goes black.
Wow.
They're about to run a piece on the Tiananmen Square massacre, and the screen just goes black. And flipping the channels, and all the other channels work, and then 5-10 minutes later, when the piece finishes running, BBC comes back.
Big Brother's watching.
Big time. And just I saw it over and over and over again, and I knew that there was no future for my music and my art over there. I was having a grand old time at the moment, but it just was not going to last. They had SARS, which I had and lived through.
Wow. Did you get the vaccine or no?
I don't think they ever had a vaccine for the SARS. I thought I was going to die. I could barely breathe. I recovered just with antibiotics. Like I never got put onto a respirator or anything like that. But I literally felt like I was breathing through a straw the entire time.
Wow. How long did it last for?
Maybe like 2 weeks. It took me about 2 weeks to recover, and maybe
very similar to this, huh?
3 weeks to get my energy back. Not 3 weeks after that, but like a total of 3 weeks. I kind of feel back to my normal self.
Sure.
Well, I'm glad you're all good. You look great, man. And I kind of want to dive more into the music aspect of like you just play now. Like, where are you at with this? Are you writing an album? Are you writing, just writing music and patching it out? What are you doing?
Yeah. So the band I have now is called Lost Becomes. We've been a band for 2 years, but we've just been patient about making sure the record was right and that we had all the right elements. We unfortunately had to change singers right before we went into the studios, Westfall Studios, with Anthony Lepardo and Ray Marty.
Love Anthony.
Yes, Anthony is...
he's the best.
He is a sweet, sweet, wonderful human being that I just have amazing synergy with. I love that man to death.
I met him for the first time when Moontooth was opening for Mark Morton. Out here. And we became fast friends. Great guy.
Awesome. Yeah, he's such a sweet human being. And I always I loved Moontooth. That's how I found Westfall to begin with. But yeah, going back to the band, we were a band for 2 years at this point. Excuse me. And we just wanted to make sure we did it right. And we really kind of like honed in on our sound and what we wanted to accomplish. I left China, came back to the States with the goal of putting together another band at some point, but I wanted to make sure it was right. And I knew that what I had in China was not normal, kind of capturing that, that lightning in a bottle, so to speak, because what's harder than writing, learning your craft of your instrument and writing a record and putting it out, what's harder is finding a group of people that you can stand to be in a room with year after year and like not fucking hate each other by the end of it and still have those creative juices. And I knew my band in China was just very unique in that we managed to have that. We just weren't in the right geographical location. So I formed another band, a couple of bands since I came back from China, and I just never felt right. I never really invested too much into it as far as my time and energy goes into. And this particular group of guys, there was that synergy. We get along on a human level. And we're all very different, personality wise. Technically maybe we shouldn't be getting along, but we do. It just works really well.
Chemistry, man. All the people that are just completely opposite of each other.
That's the word, chemistry. I'm sorry. We have that chemistry as humans, and because that was right, it made the writing process of the music seamless and fairly easy. And we're putting out. So officially to announce here, you guys are the first to know officially. We're putting out our first single December 8th.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be releasing the track Focus, which you two got to hear before anybody else.
Badass.
Sweet.
Badass.
All streaming platforms, major streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, if anyone uses that anymore, Amazon, so on and so forth. And we'll also be putting out a music video on our YouTube page, which is, you can just search Lost Moms Focus and that'll pop up. But we'll also be putting it up across all our socials. There'll be a proper press release. We have a wonderful publicist that's working with us, more specifically Maria and Adrenaline PR.
Nice.
Have strong management behind us, so we're really excited, and I think we'll be making some noise with this music.
That's great.
It's amazing.
We're you gonna check into the live streaming aspect too? We've been pushing that for the past forever since this shit.
So I guess I'll announce it here too. December 11th will be featured on Metal Injection Slay at Home.
That's awesome, man.
Amazing.
The 8th will be the single. The 11th will be Slay at Home.
Very cool.
Not too long after, you guys will get to see if we can actually pull it off live, which again, we've been playing together for 2 years. So I'm very confident.
Yeah, you'll be able to do it. Just a couple practices, just get through the set. What is it? How long would be the set? You think 6 months?
We're going to do 3 songs. We'll see if all 3 make it on there. It depends how it comes out at the end. But yeah, 3 songs, and one of those songs is going to be the single that comes out. So literally a week later, everyone's going to be able to hear 2 other songs that are soon to be released shortly after.
Very cool. That's what's up. So yeah, we talk about a lot of how bands are really not putting out the right, it's not the right way. It's just a strategy of getting people interested in what you're doing. And so with a live stream versus a live show, how the benefits are operational expenses, the logistics of it, so much easier to get in front of a bigger audience. And then when you do get to play a show, if you target, let's just say, New York City, and you're putting out live streaming and you're targeting with ads and you're driving traffic to your Spotify, and then the live stream's targeted to New York, when you do play a show, it will actually probably be likely more packed than it would have ever been if you were just to promote the old traditional way. Now, I'm not saying old traditional way doesn't have its place. However, since that's not happening right now, all you could do is make awesome content, and then when you do come back to playing shows again, it's going to be that much more momentum for your band.
100%. I mean, the band has yet to come out, but I feel like I've exercised these theories with my own brand, and in the grand scheme of other chefs out there, my following is small in comparison, to other chefs probably on my same level. But the only reason why I bring that up is because the individual has never been more empowered to reach their audience than today. It just requires work. It requires research. It requires study. It requires a lot of things out of the artists that they probably would have never thought about in the past. Now a lot of them don't take advantage of it. I didn't for a long time. I slept on it for a long time. always the guy that was like, oh, I don't get technology and I don't get this and I don't care. Like, I'm just a chef and I just do my thing and I show up to work. And just slowly over the past, I would say the last 6 years of my career, I've really like pushed myself to learn a little more at a time. And I'm getting to this place where I am today. I think in combination with my web series and all the content I've been pushing, the band and all that, I feel like, this will be hopefully that launch pad to take me to the next level. But again, going back to social media and promoting yourself between all these platforms and how that can affect your show, let's go back to, what people used to do was, you book a show, you find your way to get a slot to play at a show, and then you pass out flyers more or less, right? But now those flyers are virtual, and now there's more noise than ever. So you're competing with other artists to capture the same set of ears to show up at that whatever show that's competing with the multitude of shows that may be happening the same day, especially in a town like New York City, right? So how do you get people onto your how do you get eyeballs onto the shit you're doing? So let's use today's podcast as an example. Michael gave me your flyer, your logo, and I knew that if I just posted the logo and put all the information in the text, most of my following's not going to give a shit. Nothing on your logo, nothing on this podcast, but people are just kind of skim through it. Oh, it's another advertisement.
It's the law of large numbers,
right?
Like when Domino's puts out on Football Sunday, we're doing this, they're going to get they know they'll get a certain amount of people based upon the certain amount of advertisement that they put out. It's just the way it goes.
Right. So for me, the way I was able to get a few more eyeballs onto it was I stuck my big fat head onto it and put a bunch of graphic.
The burger in the guy's hands.
Exactly. It's just make it fun. And did it look subjectively like kind of shitty? Well, I kind of knew that when I put it out there, and the whole purpose was to get the attention. So what is the time you're willing to put into the research and the psychology behind how to capture your audience? And I realized in the past, I didn't do this because I was intimidated by it, but I do it all the time with my menus, I put on dishes onto menus, not because I necessarily like them, not necessarily that they're the best. I don't want to serve salmon on every fucking menu, but that's the fucking fish everyone orders. That's the fucking fish that everyone knows. So
Red snapper's awesome.
Right. People will probably order the red snapper, but if I do I don't know, hamachi, unless you're at a sushi restaurant, no one's going to order that. And what the fuck is a hamachi,
hamachi's so good.
How about halibut?
Halibut, right? Like halibut is a pretty good seller, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't outsell the salmon.
Right. But if you took the halibut and started making it funny or doing something with it, I mean, just like, let's say on Instagram, right? And just making it, people would be, looking into that and be like, oh, that's cute. Like what you did with the burger on our thing. I thought it was, I told him, I'm like, that's fucking awesome.
So, give you a great example of how I was trying to get people to try something different was like foie gras, right? Some people don't even know what the fuck it is, or they're totally
illegal in California.
Yes.
Damn shame.
So foie gras, I decided to and I was inspired by another chef who did something very similar, but basically I created a peanut butter and jelly dish with foie gras. Right. So I made a Concord grape jelly rather than peanut butter. I did a homemade hazelnut butter, and I did it on top of a wasabi cracker with some foie gras. That was the initial dish. That was my vessel, the selling point to the servers. Like, okay, when you sell this dish as the special, you tell them this is foie gras and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And they may get skeeved out by it, but there's going to be a few customers that are like, what the fuck is that? I got to try that,
Right.
And that eventually turned into an uni dish. I took the same principles. A lot of people are really skeeved out by sea urchin and uni. And I did the same thing. I just basically took the same principle of like giving the customer something they understand and that's approachable, and then kind of inserting a little bit of that curveball, so to speak. And I think the same thing can be applied to marketing and to advertising and to branding, that same principle.
Absolutely. That's a lemon tuna fish. Is this better analogy? I think that's a good analogy. And sea urchin is gross to me, but
No, it is not. It is one of the greatest things.
All of it grosses me out. But I have a friend that's a French chef, cuisine guy. He's a pretty high end guy. He's very good at what he does, and he always made the most obscure foods. And like, I have a friend that would never eat it. Every time he'd have a party, he'd have like the most obscure food, and like, a lot of people just wouldn't eat it because he didn't combined it with something that was more relatable. I mean, maybe if he did that, maybe more people would eat it. I ate it just because I wanted to try it, but
everything once.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very interesting. So let's kind of go into this now. Now you're going to be coming out with how many songs are coming out? Is it a full album? Is it 10 songs? Or are you doing EPs?
Songs, and every single one is going to be released as a single in I think we're going to go with a 6-week cycle. We planned out for a 4-week cycle, but the more I think about it now, I think we're going to go 6 weeks.
And let's explain to the audience why and you know what? We don't even, it's funny that I agree with you 150%. We agree with you 150% on what you're doing, because it's like a battle for me with people a lot of times when they're like, oh, I'm releasing my album. It's like, you put your album out there, they're going to gobble it up immediately. They're not even going to listen to it, and nobody's going to give a shit. So the way the consumers are right now, they're going to be like, I can't wait till your next album comes out. It's like, bro, you're going to fucking sit on that for a year. So instead of just throwing out 10 songs that aren't going to get any attention, you need to have a plan behind each song. So can you tell us a little bit about the plan behind each single? I mean, you don't have to go through each 10 singles, but like the strategy, just so we can kind of validate what our point is here.
So to take it back a little further before I get into that, again, I'm a chef by trade. It's what I'm trained to do. And and it's turned me into a very organized and pragmatic thinker and person, which is not how I was by nature, but that's how I am now. When you put together a menu, you have to think of every single variable and down to where you're going to order the shit. You can have the nicest dish on earth, but if you cannot find a steady source of that product, let's say I want to have foie gras, but I can't do that in California because it's fucking illegal. So where am I going to get it from? You can't just put shit out and then figure it out later. You really have to think it through. So I kind of apply that to everything I do. It also makes me a very easy man to kill because I do the same shit all the time. I wear the same clothes, go to the same places. I'm a very boring person. And like I said, if someone just observed me for a week, you would know how to kill me very easily. Luckily, I don't have enemies.
I don't know how you would, but continue.
So anyway, that is how I approached the band, because if I'm going to dedicate my energy, and not to make myself sound like big shit or anything, but if I'm going to put my time and energy into something, it's got to be done well, because I'm a father as well. I'm a husband as well. I have a house to take care of. I have, family obligations. I'm very close to my parents. I go see them every week. It's great. If I want to go see my parents now, I go get tested every week. You can kind of see the cycle that's happening, right? And my daughter does in-home remote learning 5 days a week. So all that shit just in my personal life, for me to dedicate time into a band, I'm not going to just put out a record for people to swallow up, play a couple shows for 5 of my friends and the other bands and their girlfriends. I think that's a line from Airheads.
And it's so true.
I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to waste my fucking time doing that. I'm sorry. So like, if I'm going to do something, it's going to be done right. Just like the way I would treat a dish. If I'm going to put out a dish, if I'm going to put out a ramen dish, I'm going to put out the best ramen dish I am capable of.
Right.
So forth. So I was never in a rush to release the music because I wanted to make sure I had the package down. And is that a banana headstock?
Sir.
That it? I saw that in your other videos, the George Lynch. I'm sorry. I'm like
fine. We'll bounce around. It's all good.
Yeah. Don't a squirrel when I see guitars. So.
Oh yes. Yes.
I love the banana headstock. It's just
you and me both. I've owned so many of them, between like ones I bought at 40th Street Custom back in the day, and I've gotten a few from ESP for free. But that neck, literally, and that's one of the newer signature series ones. Like that neck to me is the finest one they've built for that guitar,
Oh, nice.
for that series.
Never played an actual George Lynch.
It's buttery. Do you follow his Instagram at all, Mr. Scary Guitars?
I think I follow him, but it doesn't pop up on my feed regularly.
He doesn't do it very often. My buddy Jimmy DeAndas, his drummer, is played in Lynch Mob. And you know, I'm like, so is it supposed to get like George to, you know, build one of those? And he's like, it's like for you, no, but like, you know, usually like about 10 grand. He said for Jimmy, it was like 10 grand because Jimmy asked him if he'd build him one. He's like, yeah, well, you know, if I get around to it, or, you know,
it's a passion.
He's building them. He's building them with like futon parts too. Like,
oh, nice.
Rose and stuff like that.
I'm super.
Cool. Let's bounce back into, and that's a very cool guitar. Yes, of course. Back into.
Hey, dude, we're not talking about your drums. We're talking guitars here. So,
well, there's nothing to talk about with drums because
they're a box.
When it comes to being really, you know, we only have a finite amount of energy, especially towards when you're working towards something that's a passion for you and you want to push it. And, you know, especially when you get older, most people want to just throw it out there because they're lazy and they, outside of just making music, they don't understand that they have to be an entrepreneur nowadays. They have to do it smart. And if they just want to make a dent in the saturation and static out there, they really need to take their strategy seriously when they're releasing their music. And I think that you're going to be doing that with your songs coming out, and how to release it with a single, and then the evolution of the song that you're releasing. You put the content out around that song, and that's just, and then you were talking about before was like that overwhelming feeling of like having to come up with that content kind of gets overwhelming, and you feel like you're stuck and you don't know where to start. But if all we just did was just document the process and then put that out there, and there's a place for the really highly productive videos, like produced videos, and then there's a place for the raw videos, right? The stories and that we could put on YouTube and our Instagram. And there's a place for all these different avenues where you can get different clips of that song, and that can last weeks to build up to that song single, that release. So when it does come out and then you put advertising behind it, you're going to make a nice dent for yourself, as opposed to just putting it out and saying, here guys, check out my new song. Nobody gives a shit.
Right. Well, I mean, it goes back to Brian's point though. It's like, I'm sorry, Brian, to cut you off. But it goes back to Brian's point. It's like, he's not going to play, you know, I don't think anyone should play for the fucking crickets and the girlfriends and the boyfriends of band members. I mean,
yeah. And if you are that dude and you are happy with that, God bless you. Like, hey, go for it, man. Do what makes you happy is ultimately what I'm about. What makes me happy is that I don't play to a room of crickets and
exactly.
Happy is not to do that. So it was very important for me to have a strategy behind it. But more importantly, for me personally, I find it fun. I fucking love marketing and strategy and that's like half the fun for me, is trying to figure out those pieces, because my job field is very tangible. My customers in that dining room right now, the steak is cooking in front of me right now, and they're expecting it in 5 minutes. You know, I can't tell the customer, hey, you know, like my dad, he's a mechanic and he jokes all the time. Like, I don't know why you got into that business, because I can always bullshit the customer and say, your part's not coming till next week, you know, whatever. I can't do that to my customer. So my business is just super fucking tangible, and you're accountable every single plate. So I can't hide behind anything. I literally, every single time the customer gets the plate, that's me. That's what they know of me. That's
blood, sweat, and tears in the moment. No getting around it.
No getting around it. Right.
I think people will be amazed how shitty people can be about the way their food is prepared, whether it's great by industry acceptable standards or not. I had a friend who owned a deli. He was like, the complaints on a daily basis you get in a restaurant are pretty fucking astounding sometimes.
It's
I guess
food. I mean, people like feel like not only.
A second. I want to hear Brian's opinion on this.
Okay.
Have you been in that situation before?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my mother's Korean, and items on a menu in a past restaurant was bibimbap, and bibimbap, you know, is rice with a bunch of vegetables.
Sure.
And chili paste that you mix together. Bibimbap means to mix, bap means rice, mixed rice. That's literally what it translates into. I opened a restaurant in the Flatiron area of New York City, which is a very business, oriented crowd, a lot of young professionals. But it's not a Asian heavy area, so to speak. So I knew that if I was going to do a bibimbap, I should, in my eyes, tailor it a little bit more to the Western palate, vegetables that they're more familiar with, so to speak. So I was kind of doing basic stuff like zucchini, carrot, and bell peppers, and just along those lines, right? Like every American vegetables, none of the, very unique to Asia type of, kimchis and pickles and stuff like that. There was kimchi in there, but the focus was just basic, good old American vegetables, right? Or what's most popular in America. And there was a Korean lady that came in one day and then was like, is your chef Korean? I literally brought a server over and asked, is your chef, she ordered the bibimbap and then she asked the server, is your chef Korean? And the server said, well, his mother's Korean. And then she said, well, then this is no good, and literally pushed the bowl away.
Wow.
That's just to give you one example of the millions that I have. And that was from my own peoples, so to speak. So you can just see how quickly and easily, and how shitty people can get. But that's part of the game, same with music. People are super shitty, so people are just shitty in general. I mean, I like to be optimistic that everyone is good, but ultimately my outlook on life is everyone's shitty.
So let me draw from an example real quick to kind of pivot to another subject. Whether you love or hate them, or some of these celebrity chefs like Action Bronson or Matty Matheson, or these guys who've kind of made careers out of Vice.
Struggle Meals guy. I like
what?
That guy.
Which one?
Guy? I don't know his name. He's good though. Struggles Meal.
I don't know. But you look at the career Action's created out of being a rapper and being a chef, and legitimacy of like how he kind of approaches Fuck That's Delicious and all those other shows and stuff like that. Do you feel that you're kind of falling into that bar? What's the path that you're going to blaze? You feel that that's going to set you apart from a lot of these guys that do that kind of stuff?
Right. Great question, actually. So I find Action Bronson extremely inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
I also think he's a Flushing Queens boy, if I'm not.
Yeah, he is from Queens. That's why I asked the question. So it's,
I personally love his music.
I've been known on all these streets, man.
I personally find him very inspirational. I love his story. I think he's got a, did he go to CIA and work at a Michelin-starred restaurant? No, he was probably like a cook at a diner or something. And so what? So fucking what? That stuff used to bother me, Mm-hmm. I'm not a Michelin-rated chef, and I've only worked at one establishment that, when I worked there, they didn't have their Michelin star yet,
Right.
I've worked at many fine, nice restaurants, but I'm not a fine dining chef. And I used to stick my nose up to stuff like that. But that man has made a fucking career out of it.
Yeah.
As far as how that applies to me, I just find it inspirational. And, listen, let's look at, I think he's lost a lot of weight now, but let's look at him.
Yeah, yes.
He's like a hairy, big, fat dude, right? He's a white, fat dude who's rapping.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And getting high all the time.
And is high all
as hell.
All the time. He's on Vice all the time.
Yeah.
He's a fucking millionaire. And you ask anybody 15 years ago, do you, just subjectively look at those traits, is that going to be successful? Everyone would have thought you were fucking crazy.
Fucking out of your mind, yeah.
Yeah, you're out of your mind. Look at him today. He's laughing all the way to the bank. And I think that's a source of inspiration.
It's so funny with him, and like even like Matty Matheson and stuff, like these guys who've risen up. Like you wouldn't think Matty Matheson was going to live past 30 between all the cocaine and booze he drank. And he was in a hardcore band as well. Like so when he wears like a Life of Agony shirt, not to make fun of him being big, but it always looks like a piece of like silly putty that's been stretched. It's kind of that's his shtick though. Like he cooks without a shirt. He's a big fat guy with fucking lots of tattoos.
I think that's cool, man. It's actually inspirational.
It is because he's playing to himself.
It's awesome. Yeah, listen, he's playing to himself. And again, you're showing. Here's something I'm learning just from talking to you, Brian. Is that there's there's your personality, right? And your personality is your reality. So what is literally your reality? It's if you're a cook, if you're, you love food and you're bringing that in, you love music, right? You love your kids, right? You love being a gearhead with your stuff. That's your surrounding ecosystem of what you're going to focus on to put out there. And that makes you unique in the marketplace. So if you can just identify those character traits that you have that you're passionate about, and you can bring those, that's branding. You're branding yourself in a certain way that makes you more unique than anybody else. And that's how you really segment yourself. Of course, you have to have your story, and you need to tell your story well, and people need to understand your story within a couple lines of going to your media profiles. But I think that's what really was interesting to me today with having you on the show, is that, you don't have to be the musician that's traveling all over the world and touring just to be successful. You can literally just do this right from, switching from one thing to the next, but you could take your full-time job and actually, bleed it into what you love to do. And I think both those things you love to do. You love to cook, you love to be a chef, and you love to play music, right? So those two things are like what you're putting out there into the universe. And like when I go to your profile, I see something, it's captivating and engages me. It's like, oh, that's interesting. And then, I mean, this is just part of what we're talking about all the time, is just bringing you out into the universe, into showing people what you're all about. That makes you unique. And I think that's great, man.
Really glad you brought that point up, Greg, and not that, you're definitely boosting my ego, but very
boosting it.
The idea up of like having something that, finding something about yourself that can have you stick out from the rest of the crowd. Right now, I will say this, like, I've done a lot of things in my life. I've been very fortunate enough that I have a lot of things I can share. But, Mike, even to go back to your question in the beginning, or your statement in the beginning of saying, you found a way to combine music, gear, and food. But if you look at something that has changed this year for me, which was I actually honed in onto one thing, much more specifically, and that was the chefing part of my life. For a long time, I was kind of mishmashing everything. I was doing a lot of, I was posting between metal stuff, gear stuff, music, my personal music, and the chef stuff, and my chef critique side of myself, right? And I was not able to capture any one specific audience. I definitely grew, like I have a decent following, but it was a very fragmented following. And that's something I realized. And again, like I'm always evaluating myself and what I could be doing better. And I always, try to study and learn. And I just kind of felt I needed to focus in on one thing, which is why I doubled down on the chefing part of my career, because that's where I'm most established. And that's where I will command the most respect first, which is why I started the web series, basically shit talking fast food, but I'm qualified to, like, I can explain to you exactly how it's being made and why it's good or bad. And through that, I've been able to hone in a more specific audience, but also when I do reveal things like, oh, here's my guitar, this is what I do on the side, or I have music coming out. You'll notice now, in the last 6 months of my feed, it's much more food focused. And even on the food focused part, I focused in on something specific within food, which is sandwiches, because I'm getting ready to open up a sandwich shop next year. Awesome. So I'm trying to shape the narrative to the way I want it to be, and something that I am an authority in. So the rest is kind of like peppering stuff in, like, oh, that's a cool, wow, I didn't know that about Chef Brian. And I've noticed more steady growth that way. So that's something that I've definitely changed recently. And I would recommend to anybody is to find the thing that you have the most authority on and find your angle of how you can bring that out to the people.
It's great how you are able to take with the YouTube channel over, with the sandwich, just take the Subway episode because it's the most recent one I've watched. And the Popeye's chicken sandwich too, it looks like a pretty amazing one, which I got to check out. But like to take it and go, because we were talking about before you came on here.
I'm looking at it now. Your thumbnails are awesome.
Yeah, they are.
What do you?
But the thing is like Ireland recently shot down Subway of actually being a food source because the bread had so much sugar in it.
Yes. I actually
It was
saw
about as good as a can of Coca-Cola, they said.
I looked up that article after I think you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Brought it up to me. In the episode, I said, this bread is like a cupcake. And I said that, and I filmed that before that article was brought to attention. But, I was able to kind of surmise that thought process just because of my profession and my training and and kind of came to that conclusion. But Subway, man, and a lot of these fast food places, listen, there's a time and place for it. And I believe there should be cheap and inexpensive food in this world for all to enjoy and consume. And I do not judge anyone by their food choices. What's important to me is that people know what those choices are about and what they're putting into their bodies, and that there could be a similar alternative that's maybe better for you.
Yeah.
Actually, not maybe, definitely better for you, and fundamentally better for you.
It's like that book, What This or That, it's a little book that, you can live by choosing the best. If it's going to be shitty food, what's the better shitty alternative?
Right.
Kind of like our political system between a turd bag and a douchebag. It's just fitting. It just fits.
We're going there.
That's all I'm going. It's just, that's what you get. So it's either one or the other, but
it's just so interesting to me. Like, you look at, you make a great point with someone like Action Bronson, right? Would someone with those makings of not even a celebrity, but of a personality or someone who's trying to make a living through, because if you really think about it, whether it's a cooking show, whether it's this show, whether it's, stuff that you're doing on your YouTube channel, it's all educational at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. And there's a place for it.
And the thing is to me, it's like, with those types of makings, you would never see that person, in past times in society before the internet, you would never see anyone, how do I put it? You would never see anyone be taken seriously from that aspect without some sort of degree or some sort of, declaration that they're this, essentially.
Right.
And it's amazing to me how you take it. Because the thing is, too, there's got to be a certain point with your YouTube channel, even though it is talking about fast food and, like you said, good, cheap food, and you don't judge by people's decisions on what they're going to eat. But at the same time, it's like you're giving them the education. Like, look, if you wanted to make a healthier choice out of this, you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's pretty amazing.
It's street credit, man. You got the 10,000 hours.
Not even so much street credit. Not even so much street credit. He's really providing a service if you think about it.
Well, it's value because most people are unhealthy. Obesity is a huge issue in this country. Huge.
I mean, you even said it about yourself, Brian. Like, you almost had cirrhosis at 15, right?
Yeah. Well, I was 15 years old, 360 pounds. And funny enough, when I moved to China, I gained more weight because the fucking family I was living with didn't know what they were like. What do we feed this kid? He's from America. Let's feed him McDonald's and KFC every day. That's literally what I would eat 5 days a week when I lived in China.
You lost a lot of weight then, huh? That's life-changing.
I was 360 pounds. It took me about 3 years, and I went down to 180 pounds.
Shit.
Now I am today. Now I'm 250 pounds. I will say this. I naturally, I feel my best body weight should be around 210, 215. That's where I remember feeling the most healthy. I did struggle with anorexia and bulimia for a long time. That's how I was able to get to that 180 pounds.
Both, huh? Not just one, just both.
I started with the anorexia, and then I gave bulimia a try, and I was like, oh, I can eat a lot.
You're funny. That's funny. I just gave it a try.
Boot it up.
Just to see how this one goes.
Yeah, well, I was like, oh, I can still eat. This is great, and I won't gain the weight. I'm making a joke of it now, but it was a very serious and dangerous.
Sure. My brother had that serious thing too, so I had to go through that with him, and he didn't tell anybody, but we noticed.
Going back to the web series and what I'm doing with the web series, I really dived into it because I'm a father now, and I'm noticing I'm starting to care about these things a lot more. And I take my daughter to McDonald's once every 2 weeks, I think now more like every month.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain why. Number one, it's the Happy Meal is probably the single greatest piece
Marketing tool.
of marketing in existence.
Mm.
Hands down. It makes kids happy. They get a fucking toy. They get sustenance out of it. Not the best, but they get sustenance out of it. It's inexpensive. And in turn, what's that going to make happen? It's going to make the parents go there because their kids won't shut the fuck up about wanting French fries and nuggets and a toy.
Mm-hmm.
So the parents are going to go and spend their money there. And then, you end up every time you drive by a fucking McDonald's, the kids kicking and screaming, they want to have McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
I treat McDonald's as a treat for my daughter. Hey, like you were being really good in school today. Let's go to McDonald's. I know you love chicken nuggets and things like that.
That's
How
good.
old's your daughter, by the way?
She's 5 years old now.
Okay, so she's like my niece's age. Okay, I get it.
So yeah, she's at that age, right?
Yeah.
The moment she sees McDonald's, she wants McDonald's.
Mhm.
And I barely ate fast food before the web series, especially when I started losing weight. I basically cut all that out of my life. So it was very sparse very rare for me to eat junk food. And my wife is basically a vegetarian. She doesn't try to be a vegetarian, but that's how she grew up, was meat.
Right.
Essentially, she comes from Malaysia in a very small town, very Cantonese populated southern. So that's how naturally. So there was rarely any junk food. All it took was one time for my daughter's mind to be fucking blown by a Happy Meal and want to go there all the time. So I had to really start thinking about like
Gateway drug.
Yeah, gateway. How much is this gateway drug I want? That's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, it's a gateway drug, dude. It's like, it's like what Dennis Leary said. It's like, weed doesn't lead to other drugs. It leads to carpentry. It's like,
Good. That's good.
It's like,
Cute.
I want to make a bong out of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good start. And then when you get bored with that, you can go to the drug. We're talking about a lot about music, but everything ties into just being yourself and being able to separate yourself from your, I wouldn't say competition, but just the saturation in the marketplace. So your YouTube channel seems to be doing that. And your subjects are very, very. I see one right here. You call that spaghetti, and it had a bass player on there, fucking jamming out. Is that one of your dudes or?
No. So what I do, that's Greg the Paolo Gregoletto of Trivium. So
Oh yeah,
that is okay. Nice.
one of our good friends who actually is watching this right now, who texted me during this, is Trivium's front of house guy.
Oh, no shit. So as a little shtick at the beginning of every episode of the web series, I make this joke about saying that like, no, I'm not related to Paolo Gregoletto. We just
yes, that's right.
happen to be bald and, whatever, good looking and something like
I'm bald too, bro. I just have a beanie on because it's getting cold out here. But you're in New York, so
yeah. Well, I'm in my studio room, so it's nice and warm in here. But I'll compare myself to some notable figure, and there's a whole marketing reason for that. Is because I tag that person and be like, hey, I shouted you out here, and sometimes they retweet me, repost me. Sometimes they don't. Like now, I've befriended DJ Neil Armstrong. I don't know if you guys are familiar with DJ Neil Armstrong, but he's a legendary OG DJ. From back in the day, he was Jay-Z's DJ very recently. And, I shouted him out and I was like, no, I'm not related to DJ Neil Armstrong. Someone literally did stop me on the street once and asked me if I was DJ Neil Armstrong. But that's how I got the idea. And that has helped the show grow. And the show's only been around for 2 months, but I've been very strategic about it. I see steady growth. And, some people may frown upon this, but I do very specific targeted ads on Facebook for the web series, and it's helped it grow immensely.
Tell us about that.
That's what we wanted to ask you next. I was trying to find the end, and thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you, Brian.
Some people don't want to share this stuff, but
Right.
This is what we want to share. This is important.
Yeah.
I think, conversations like this give you more ideas and how to refine it better.
Sure.
Why not share your ideas?
Sure.
Dimebag always said he doesn't mind sharing his secrets because it just
Sure.
come up with more. So that's my behind sharing my techniques and everything, whether it's cooking or marketing and things like that. So
I love it,
look
man.
at the episode has my highest ratings, the most amount of views, I'm sorry, out of all my episodes so far. And that is because, number one, it's a Filipino brand. And number two, I'm like 1/12th or 16th or 18th Filipino, because my grandfather was born and raised in the Philippines. He spoke English his entire life, because Philippines is an English speaking country, in Bengal. And in the Filipino culture, if you have one hair of Filipino in you, that's enough to make you full Filipino. You claim like you're Filipino, brother. And
here's a balut. Here's balut.
Take you with arms wide open. Every single time I've run into a Filipino person, I just mentioned my grandfather was born and raised in the Philippines, and I'll stress, like, he is ethnically Chinese, like he spoke Chinese in the house and everything like that, but he was born and raised in the Philippines, and they didn't care. They're like, oh, well, you're still Filipino. And I always knew that about the culture, and I always loved the Filipino people for that, because they're just so inviting and so warm and loving, as opposed to, like, for example, my father's Chinese, whatever, he's 1/8 Filipino now, right? So, and my mother is Korean, and those cultures, like, secretly are racist to each other, right? Like Koreans will say about Chinese, like, oh, you're fucking dirty. And then the Chinese will say about the Koreans, like, oh, you're fucking materialistic. I heard it all the time. And, to the Korean crowd, I was never Korean enough. To the Chinese crowd, I was never Chinese enough. And they just kind of did not care to mingle their cultures. In fact, my mom was really looked down upon for marrying a Chinese man for a long.
I was going to ask, because your dad's Chinese, your mom's Korean. That must be interesting.
Yeah, that's culturally. Like, not trying to talk about myself, but I'm Armenian. My dad and my mom's a Spanish Jew Italian lady. So they were frowned upon. She was frowned upon for being his wife, because he had a arranged marriage and he left Turkey to come here and, like, escaped it and, like, got married to an American woman. So my whole life, it was like I was watching them talk shit to her, and, like, she's like, what are they saying? They don't sound like they're being nice, though. It's not nice. They're very cold. Yeah, very cold. Ottoman Empire mentality, man.
You know exactly what I went through. Is just that kind of looking down upon someone else that's just not part of your culture. I experienced micro racism on a daily basis.
It's still strong breeding, though.
I'm sorry.
Still strong breeding.
Yeah, I mean, listen, my parents, bicker about each other's cultures to this day.
Of course.
But going back to the marketing strategy for Jollibee. So you can optimize your I'm sorry,
Facebook ad.
You can really do better with your SEO through the description in your video, through the name of the video, the tags that you put onto it, but that'll only take you so far. You really have to find ways to cross-pollinate all your marketing tools. So I know that Facebook has a very strong ad platform that lets you target and get very specific. So I knew for the Jollibee episode, not only am I reviewing a Filipino brand, but I have some relation to the Filipino culture. So I just took out, a $20 ad just targeting the Philippines, and lo and behold, 500 view video.
Great.
That was my method with that. Now, shortly after that, it was the elections, and I thought the world was gonna, the country was gonna burn to the ground. So I kind of held off on any marketing, but I picked that back up. Now, okay, so a total of 500 people not 500, but a good portion of people in the Philippines know who this face is now. So let's do it again. So the Subway episode, I did the same thing, but now it does not need to be geographically. I'm sorry, the topic of the video does not need to be specific to the Philippines.
Right.
Captured eyeballs and an audience and interest, and from there, that will help get the views up, and then that in turn will help me be in a better place in the algorithm for more people to find me. So there was a thought behind the madness, so to speak.
Well, I would figure, I would only think that there'd be a thought behind the madness with you, Brian, based on our conversation, right? And this is something that's huge. I mean, for very little money, you can really, really bring in some. I mean, we're doing a YouTube campaign ourselves right now, and we're bringing in some really good organic traffic through Facebook groups. So the guys going for me and going to groups. Now that's more of an organic approach. But that's going to be combined with some advertising efforts of taking a $20 and putting a budget up for a certain episode and driving traffic specifically to that targeted episode. So let's just take this episode, for example. We're going to target more people that are, foodies, right? And like metal and like certain types of bands, and literally go on your channel and see what your tags are, which I'm looking up right now, which is interesting because I have TubeBuddy views, right?
Oh, okay, cool.
TubeBuddy gives you the nice analytics of all the most popular videos, and you take these tags that are very popular, but they also give you you want something that's not competitive, but's very much searched, but also is interested, like people are interested in. So it gives you those analytics, and you could take those and you could pop them in. Now they only work so well, like you said, they only go so far. So you got to cross-pollinate with some other tags and things and put them all together. And there's nothing wrong with investing in paid advertising. People think that's like selling out. It's not. You can get in front of so much more people. Like we're talking
Charlie
about.
B episode. I mean, it was totally targeted. It was a $20 ad. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. And go ahead, Ryan.
Need to get over themselves, put that ego aside, shut the fuck up, and listen for something that they can learn. Yeah. And if you have nothing positive to add, then get the fuck out of here. I mean, that's really
which I also like about the demographic of your channel being not so typical. It's like, that's one thing I got to ask you actually, and this is a little stray from this, but it won't. I look at some of these other chefs like Gordon Ramsay, and obviously a lot of that shit's for show, but like, have you ever been in that situation in a kitchen where you've just totally fucking flattened people verbally like that?
Listen, I've been flattened numerous times. My career is built on mistakes and errors, fucking up. That's why I am where I am today.
Right.
And I have no qualms about asking questions. You ask anybody who's known me within the music industry, they will, and if you ask them, does Brian ask a lot of questions? Yeah, they'll probably be like, oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, yeah, he does ask a lot of questions. I'm fucking curious and I don't know. And there's no shame in showing you don't know.
Yeah, because you're vulnerable to learn more. And that's what makes your character, putting your ego aside to be like, I want to ask questions. I don't care if I get my ass torn up. Like, that's
not even that. It's the pursuit of knowledge and bettering yourself.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Why should you give a shit if someone thinks of you in a negative light if you are pursuing knowledge and improving yourself? So to that, I just don't care. I just ask questions, and I'm willing to fuck up. Maybe now you guys are seeing my branding at where it is today, but it took, I've been actively at this for 6 years. It took me 5 years of being sucky at it and doing a shit job at it. And I barely knew how to work technology at one point. And here I am today. You guys complimented me on my fucking gear. It's because I asked questions and I learned. And that's exactly what I look for out of a good cook who I hope to one day promote to a sous chef, who I hope one day will take their career to become, a chef de cuisine and so on and so forth, is, that knowledge and not being afraid to fuck up.
That's applicable to everything. Now, it's like, so right now, I think a lot of our listeners or people who would listen to this get overwhelmed. And we always say, what is it? Paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
There's so much
option paralysis
shit out there. And then like you go into it and then all of a sudden you're upsold on all this other shit. And it's like, then you get defeated. It's like, fuck, now I need this and this and that. So just take it slow. And we're here to tell you, like he just told you guys, he put $20 out to drive traffic to his YouTube, vlog. And that's what he did. He learned how to do it. And you're investing in yourself. There's nothing wrong with investing in yourself and taking a little risk. Like you're going to go buy a $5 fucking Starbucks coffee. I mean, you do that every day. You can't just put $20 aside and throw it into your business.
Brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up. I used to go. I have a Dunkin' Donuts episode coming out, and
nice.
I used to go to Dunkin' Donuts every day. I didn't even like the coffee. I went because it was convenient, because I drive. I'm one of the few New Yorkers that drive all the time because my dad's a mechanic.
Good idea.
It's a parking lot. It's convenient. It's consistent. I think their coffee shit personally, but I went because the whole package was enough to sell a professional chef to go fucking eat there every day. And I realized I was spending a shit ton of money on that. And what did I do? I started stealing coffee from the restaurant and brewing my own every morning. I woke up 20 minutes earlier, and I wake up every day at 7:20 a.m., even on the weekends. And rather than, like yesterday, I was just completely worn out. I was like, I'm going to watch TV today. And I watched 4 hours of TV. Everyone's allowed that free time. Please don't take what I'm saying as like, you got to be balls to the wall all the time, 24/7, brother. No. What I'm saying is, like, if you can allocate your time, or not allocate, but if you can be a bit more efficient with your time, and this goes back to planning.
Yeah.
Like, look at I live by my calendar. If something's not in my calendar, I will not do it. I will forget about it.
Yeah.
And that is the only way I'm able to juggle. I launched an apparel line. These are all new ventures. So who knows? I could be totally full of shit, and 5 years from now, I'll be broke as fuck. I'm also notoriously cheap, and I'd love to get into that. But, so I started.
We'll have to bring you back for the finance episode with me. We'll talk about how to properly plan your future.
Yeah. And I'm not good at it. I'm not.
Right.
I'm not good with numbers, but I just realized, like, okay, if I'm really going to do this, I need to really plan this out. And then, you may start getting texts from me, Mike, going, hey, dude, so, you know what I mean? Like, and if you don't answer, so be it. If you do, then I learned something.
Dude,
right?
it's to me, it's like when we started this, I had this idea for another company that we're working on at the moment that I don't want to tell anybody, and not that I don't want to tell anybody about, but it's more service-based for musicians and a way for them to distribute their publishing better, essentially. And the thing was, Greg was like, well, why don't we start a podcast? And I was like, that's a great idea. But the thing was, we didn't do episode 1 until we had 3 months in the can of me finding guests and us planning, what is that thing going to look like? How is it going to taste? What is it going to be like? And not to the point of analysis by paralysis, but of like proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
That's another good quote.
It's what my dad used to fucking ingrain into me because he was in the Navy. He's like, proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. The 7 Ps. Like, oh my God. And it's like at 46, I'm like, oh my God, he was so right. It's just, but you have to.
Yeah. To go back to shit, I lost my train of thought. But what the hell were we talking about before? I'm sorry.
Cheap savings, business ventures.
Oh, so yeah, business ventures. Oh, option paralysis. So Greg,
paralysis.
Talking about like people get overwhelmed, right? Yeah. So I went off on this tangent. I'm sorry. I tend.
Oh, it's fine.
We love it.
We love tangents.
It's what Premiere's for.
But. So Greg, you mentioned option paralysis. People are so overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed all the time. You just don't see it because what I present to you is me not being overwhelmed. And that's kind of like one of the messages I also try to push on my socials, and the whole idea of not your typical, and the idea behind the apparel brand and everything is like, my life is built on mistakes, and I get overwhelmed just like you, and I fuck up just like you. But if you don't fuck up, and if you're not, everyone was sucky at one point. Everyone sucked. So just be willing to suck at it for a while. But if you keep at it, even if it's just 1 hour a day or half an hour a day, if you keep at it, I'm pretty sure a month later you're going to be better at it.
There's a saying by Napoleon, or not a saying. I think Napoleon Hill. He said, if you spend an hour a day studying a new subject for a year, you'll actually be an expert in it.
I mean, better than you would have been the year before without not spending an hour on it.
Without spending that hour a day.
I think for us, I still get overwhelmed every day. I'm like, but it's one platform at a time. And it's like, okay, more YouTube views are going to probably lead to more Instagram followers. And then if I follow Adam Ivy, who is a mentor that he doesn't even know me, of course, but I follow him, Damian Keys, this guy named Manifest, like they teach you how to really.
Craig has a lot of crushes on men that don't know him.
It's all like, platonic, but they don't even know who I am. Regardless, I buy these courses and I literally go through them and I start applying these methods. But like a lot of the times, and I'm going to be honest, I'm no longer in a band right now because of these methods that I'm trying to apply to the band that I was in. That was going to help us really
tell that story, because Brian, this is an interesting story. You'll appreciate it.
I literally just got kicked out of my band like 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
And it's sad, but the truth is this: like in June, I talked with them about how we're not really putting out things that are correct. We're just putting it out there and kind of half-fasting it. And it was sad because the open-mindedness to be able to apply these things that we're talking about every day were being just thrown out to the side, and they weren't listening at all. So it was like they're getting mad at me. And why are they getting mad at me? Because they're projecting themselves out on me, because we're not doing that. And I can't force anybody to do something they don't want. But I was excited about it, just like you talked to before. Like, oh, I get excited about marketing. I do, because no bands are really doing it. And if they are doing it, they're half-fasting it. And it's okay to, just shoot from the hip a little bit, but like you can start planning out your content for a month and start posting it automatically. This way you don't have it. And let's make it easy, guys. Let's just start documenting our stuff. When we come in every week, we're doing all this every week. We're putting in the work. Let's just press record and have that 6th band member in the room. And when we have these moments, we could just press record. And that's going to be great content about how we're building up to these songs and how we make them. And literally, dude, they couldn't take it. And I got a text saying, we have a difference of a text. We have a difference of opinion. And we don't want to, we don't think you should be our drummer anymore because, we just don't agree with the way you're going about this. And ever since I started the podcast, the reason I started was to validate these reasons on why bands should literally start doing things and taking more initiative outside of just making the music and literally start documenting these processes. That it's easier than you think. If you put it in perspective like this, you're literally just documenting what you're already doing. And that's not so hard to do when you put it that way. And here's the equipment I use, and here's the companies I like, and those guys know their equipment in and out, and they're passionate about it. And I love that about them. But, when it talks about turning the camera on and taking some of this and batching it out for later, it literally got overwhelming to the point where like they weren't doing that after that conversation. And it was just like, okay, we just got to nip it in the butt and kick Greg out because he's never going to stop with this. So now I have this time.
Hope they prosper, but
Sure.
Here, every loss is an opportunity.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, it is. And it's the opportunity is this. Now I got to start making my music with my other band and my own music and start putting it out there. And all that time that I had to allocate towards that needs to be allocated towards my own passions now. So here we go. Here we are. And we're doing that with the podcast. So the podcast is literally my little pet peeve project that is like showing the validity of that this fucking shit actually works if you start applying it and you're consistent. And you can at least just start posting once a day and then maybe make it 3 times a day. That would be ideal. Do a story, do a post every.
Brian, what were you going to say real quick?
I was going to, basically compliment Greg and say, listen, you are pursuing exactly what you want to pursue, and you're doing it in a very smart manner. And you are taking, you had a loss, you're taking an opportunity from that loss, and you're taking the steps necessary. And who knows how long it's going to take. That's not what I can't tell you that.
Sure.
But if you keep on this path, 1 year from now, you are going to be a fucking pro. If you do it consistently, you're going to be a pro by the end of that year compared to where you were that year ago.
Correct. And that's fine with me. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with putting in the time. That's the thing. I love the journey, man. Like I'm all about it. I'm all about the trials and tribulations. Do I want to struggle? No, but I know it's part of the process, and I'm okay with it because I'm patient. Because
enjoy the journey.
I'm not.
Life's a marathon.
Because guys, the point is you don't have to be signed by a label. You don't have to be touring to make money. You can literally make a business out of what you're passionate about. It doesn't matter what it is. But since we're called the Music Combine, you can literally make your songs, drive traffic to it, and start getting people to fucking opt into what you're doing, get their email list, and then start marketing in that list, and then build that list up. And that's going to be your lifeblood. And guess what? When you do play a show, you're not going to be playing to the band's, girlfriends and their boyfriend and girlfriends of the other bands that are at the show with you. Because you know what? That's all I ever did. when I went out. Yeah, I'd come back and there'd be a little more people there because I would really try to get their emails and like that was a big thing with me. Like, you're going to go play out to, East Bumblefuck, and you're going to play and it's going to be a decent show. And then you're going to get off stage. You're going to pack up your shit and leave. You're an idiot. Go fucking get emails. Go to the merch table. Go get everybody's email, get their name, put it in the list and say, this was Chicago. And we're going to build that list up. And now when we go next time we go to Chicago, they're going to know we're going to be there and they're going to be marketed to on a regular basis. And that's fucking awesome. Now you're really building something that's really tangible. Now you're building like relationships with people.
So it's like clearly the rest of the band is not willing to put in that time and energy. They want to be weekend warriors. That's fine, man. But you are you, just like I didn't when I first got back from China, you didn't find the right people to have those creative juices. And so long as you keep working on this and you keep doing this podcast, I'm pretty sure eventually people are going to find you. And that's the beauty of it. If you don't put out the signal, people aren't going to find you. Like all my band members, that's exactly, they basically, I approached them about putting the band together, but they came to me because I would host heavy metal happy hours in my restaurants all the time.
Nice. I got to go to one of those when you do that again. Like, I don't know when, because I'm right here in Bergen County. I'm 25 minutes from the bridge. So
yeah, my cousin lives in Bergen, so I'm familiar with the drive over there. And so listen, man, I when I was in the thick of my career, I did not have time for a band. I knew that, but I knew I could still be within the music scene. So what did I do? This is the story that really changed my life. I'm sorry if we're running over time, but
no, go ahead.
So this is the point where things really spun off. Okay, for me, I left China, came here, knew I had to make a lifestyle change, but I always knew I wanted to do a band again. This was 16 years ago, okay? I basically, for 10 years of my career, lived as a hermit. Didn't go to any shows, didn't have any friends within the industry at all. Didn't know a single soul in the industry. So what did I do? Well, when I finally got to that point of my career where I could start to go to shows on a Thursday night every now and then, I could dip out of work a little early when I could start doing getting involved in the scene, when I could afford to, buy merch and things like that, because don't forget, books don't.
There's no Teespring.
Yeah. I started following all these artists, and I remember specifically following Mark Holcomb of Periphery.
Nice. Was that Mark, is he the bass player or the
Periphery
guitarist?
Guitarist, yeah. He's one.
The long-haired guy or the first?
Yeah, the long-haired guy.
Okay.
So I followed Mark Holcomb of Periphery, and I just sent him a DM, and I said, dude, fucking love your music. You guys are coming into town. I would love to cater you guys. Wow. I had, at that point in my career, where I could take $200 worth of sushi. At the time, it was I had a sushi restaurant. I said, let me cater you guys, you and the crew, because I knew, I didn't even really know this, but I knew any person of significant leadership will have a team behind them. And if they're a good leader, they typically want to take care of that team. At least that's how it is with the chefing world.
Sure, yeah.
So I knew, I was like, well, I'm pretty sure they have a whole road crew and they wouldn't want to just have their one sushi roll by themselves. They're going to want to share that. So I better make sure the entire... So I drummed up about $200-300 worth of sushi. Wow. And I offered this and they said, oh, I just saw you on Beat Bobby Flay. Fortunately, I had that working for myself, but it was me reaching out to the artist and offering something that I could bring to the scene to help them in a positive way. And that got my foot in the door. And I showed up the day of the show, went to the tour bus, knocked, no one was opening the door, and I forgot my phone. So I had no way to reach Mark. And I was like, fuck, I came all the way here. I'm holding $300 worth of sushi. How the hell am I going to reach this guy? What did I do? Again, not worried about what people think of me. The first guy I saw come out of the venue, I said, listen, you don't know me. I don't know you, but I need to call someone. I forgot my phone. I have $300 worth of sushi and I need to reach this dude. Can I please use your phone? And it turned out he was the tour manager.
Very cool.
I didn't know him. He didn't know me. He's not a foodie either. And we became very close friends. I don't know if you guys know him. His name's Nikhil Potter.
It sounds very familiar just from like social media, but
LA guy now, and he worked with Periphery for a long time. He worked with Murray at Outer Loop.
Awesome. Outer Loop, yeah, Outer Loop.
So I asked him years later, like, what compelled you to lend me your phone? He's like, well, you're holding $300 worth of sushi, not like you're gonna fucking run with my phone, you know. Yeah. So I managed to get in touch with Mark, and that's how it started. I just checked out touring schedules of my favorite bands. Every time they came into New York City, I offered to cater them. I offered them to eat dinner at the restaurant, so on and so forth. That was my foot in the door. You know, you have to like be proactive. And that's how it started to where I am today. I didn't know what the fuck Sennheiser was. Well, I knew what Sennheiser was, but you get the idea. Like I didn't know how to work Pro Tools. I didn't know any of that shit, but I knew that if I wanted to eventually have a band again, I had to run in those circles and I had to start somewhere. So I started with what I knew, which was food. And fortunately, people always are open to having food.
Yep.
But that's where it started. And I didn't know how to edit video at that time. It all just steamrolled from there, one by one item at a time, one thing I just checked off the list at a time as I progressed. And now I'm finally releasing my music, and I'm probably doing it the best way possible because I'm doing it independently and I own all my own shit. And I did it with very little money because I'm a cheap son of a bitch.
Boom. That's the
done, son. Look at that.
Talking about right there. And I was listening to a podcast last week. I was telling Mike, and we talked about it on State of the Union, which was Russ the Rapper, and how he literally made a song a week for a year. Some of those songs were shit, but it led to some really good songs that he made that led to him building a massing amount of subscribers to his YouTube and people just downloading his songs. And he was running ads like we were just talking about. He was running Facebook ads to his Spotify or to his YouTube, and literally he had Columbia approach him for a 180 deal, not a 360, a 180, which is ideal. And he got to get the deal that he wanted, as opposed to him having to fucking give up his soul and his masters. He owned all his masters. He owned all his merch, everything. So it just goes to show you just a little bit of out of the box thinking, a little bit of initiative. It goes a long way, and you don't have to just rush into everything. Just do it incrementally. And let's start with your music. And what can you do with your music right now that you can have other things around that music that's going to really engage people? You have to capture that, man. Otherwise, people just don't give a shit. They won't. Who will really give a shit about if you don't give a shit about yourself? You got to do it right.
Nobody's going to give a shit about anything unless you give them a reason to. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't. Like, everyone kind of knows that, but no one knows that. No one really understands what that means.
I feel like sometimes people don't know it because the fact is, like, they've been so programmed that certain things are just unattainable.
True. That's very,
you know what I mean? Like Chef Brian Tsao, like, you know, in China at 15 is now, you know, a well-known chef and is in a band. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't, like, I had a very good mentor of mine tell me one time, I was probably 18, and I was like, well, do I go to Berklee College of Music or do I go to Full Sail? Become an engineer. And he goes, and I had a lot of self-doubt in the fact that I didn't know how to be an engineer, right? Or what an engineer really did. And he's like, look, man, he's like, Mutt Lange wasn't doing AC/DC at 18. You know what I mean? Like, at some point you have to, everything is, a lot of things are a learned skill.
Take the plunge.
If you don't care what other people think or what their opinion is going to be, and it makes you happy, I think at the end of the day, that's always going to persevere overall. I mean, would you not agree, Brian?
I totally agree. And I have to preface this by saying I used to care a lot about what thought of me.
Oh, yeah, same here.
Ditto.
Everyone, well, there we go. Everyone in this room, in this theoretical room, in this digital room,
our virtual room,
gave a shit probably to your detriment.
Too much.
Right?
Absolutely.
Detriment about what others thought. What did that get you?
Yeah.
Fucking nothing. Right? Probably. I'm pretty sure everyone in this digital room can say, once you started to not give a shit, all of a sudden, all this cool shit happened to me. You know, so that's, you know, to go back to you, Greg, your band letting you go could be the best thing that happens to you.
Oh, it definitely. we know that. I just love the music is all. So it's just it's a bittersweet thing. But you know what? It's
You're
a good
write new music, and you're gonna write better music, and you know what I mean. Like I used to be so attached to the things I made and to what other people thought of me, and like I said, once I let those things go and just let it flow, but stayed in a positive, consistent trajectory, things started to happen. And again, like people look at my career and say, "Oh, you're really successful." Well, I don't look at it that way because I still see like this fucking giant road ahead of me, and there's so much I want to do. And I honestly don't look at myself as a success. I look at myself as just getting started.
I think it's interesting. I literally was watching an interview with Matthew McConaughey recently, and he said that he had an issue with himself where he was like, after Dazed and Confused, that's the ceiling.
Yeah, the plateau.
But the thing is that he said to himself, he said in the book, I guess he wrote in his book, I got to read it. It seems like it's a pretty interesting read.
Sure. He's
regardless of what you think about Matthew McConaughey.
I love Matthew.
Okay, great. But the thing is like his point is that, who am I to say the universe should limit me here?
Right.
Who am I to say, how selfish of me to fucking say, oh yeah, this is where I stop. And I've been in that situation before with myself where it's like, well, I've done the best I can at 23. I guess I've peaked. That's bullshit. Like there's so much other time and space down the road for you to fill with goals and dreams and things and everything else. I just, I feel like people limit themselves or put that energy out there because that's what they've been taught.
Right.
Plain and simple.
It's their program. We're programmed to not achieve our full potential, and a lot of people just settle.
Damn public school system.
No, seriously. I mean, listen, I'm not going to get into it in the rabbit hole, but yeah, we're taught things that we weren't taught. We're taught the history they wanted us to learn instead of the history that really is. If you take a look outside of what you've learned in school and what your parents have taught you, because the truth is, if you just go outside of that and you learn from more of their mistakes and the things that they never did, the things that you questioned when you were little, the things that you were told not to do, and you start actually thinking about that, it's like, wait a minute, what if I thought this way instead of what they told me? I probably wouldn't be I wouldn't be so self-conscious of putting myself out there, And it's part of growing. It's like if you don't make yourself uncomfortable, you're never going to be getting to the next level. So if you're comfortable, great, but you got to be uncomfortable. It's the only way you grow. You want to learn how to get people to come and watch your band. You have to learn how to get to engage an audience. You have to learn about marketing because this is the only way people are really going to care about what you're doing. And that just goes for anything.
And listen, like YouTube, podcasts, something else is going to come along, just like fucking records. They came back, but you get what I mean.
I'm hoping for the hologram cast.
Well,
we just show up Jetson style.
Ryan, check it out, though. Check it out. So I follow Neil Patel. He's one of the greatest minds of marketing out there right now. And what he's very smart when he goes, okay, make a podcast and then film it and then have a vlog as well. And then have a blog off of that vlog and that podcast. Now you have 3 different tiers of things. And that's what you do. You take this, you transcribe it, you take the best of it, you make it a blog, which is a lot of work. But at the same time, there's companies like Descript that help you do that. But like you could do that and literally make the best of one thing and just repurpose it on the multiple platforms that you have. And that's smart. That's just making the best of your time and being resourceful at the same time. You talk about being resourceful and not having to spend a lot of money. You take this one podcast, we're going to make a podcast out of it. We're going to make a video out of it, a vlog, and we're going to make a blog. So there's 3 different.
I mean, I 100% agree with you, but to back up a little bit, at least from my perspective and how I'm taking things, and to get back to our audience who are listening to this and trying to get the little tidbits of knowledge, I'm pretty sure, once they hear everything you just stated, it gets back to that whole thing of being overwhelmed. And what I want to kind of bring it back to is like, listen, start at one thing.
Yeah.
Be great at one thing.
Get good at it. And then you're going to be able to take on something else. So for example, I was doing the editing all on my own at one point. And, I can still do that now, but what I've decided to do is, okay, I've allotted myself a budget every month that's within my means. And now I have an editor that does 1 out of every 4 episodes. Not because I want to, but because I want to have time for my family.
Yeah. And that's smart.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I can vastly relate to your pain. I do all the editing for the shows now just because I've had the skills for years of doing it. But at some point, me and Greg have talked about it before. For you to up your image, or not even image, or identity of what your show is, sometimes you have to take it out of your hands, so someone else's perspective can be added to it, so it makes it just that much better. I mean,
and your time may be better spent elsewhere. Mike may be better just focusing on new guests to get, which he's been doing from the beginning as well. So there's multiple hats we're wearing. But I have this. I mean, I do marketing for a living in sales, so like I know that my time is allotted and allocated towards the bigger things that need to get done, that if they don't get done, you don't have anything to promote. So, it's the more of the social media and the content building that we're doing and cutting this up and working with Mike hand in hand. Those are the most important things that we're doing right now, but they're going to be delegated to somebody else at some time when we have a bigger budget to put towards somebody else doing that. And I can focus more on creation, on video content, and then building out the pillars that we're building on the back end of this podcast, which is music education and a one-stop shop to get anything you need to help you build your band to the level that you need to be at to be able to do it for a living. And how do you make a living out of it? You got to start somewhere. So this is it right here. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not making money out of the band, out of the web series and stuff like that. It's all within my means, which is why, again, it was so important for me.
Ditto.
Everything was inexpensive. And so, for example, you mentioned that you use an app or a program or something to find people's tags within videos. I did some digging and found a way to do it free. Basically, I go to the video, you right click, and the fuck it's called.
Keywords.
Anyway, essentially, you right click on the video, you hit something, I can't recall it off the top of my head, and then it'll bring you to the code of the video, and then you just type in the search keywords, and then that'll take you to all the tags on every video.
Boom. Secret.
I didn't feel like paying the subscription fee to use, an app or something like that.
Well, that's a little tidbit.
Oh, wow, look at that. I'm doing it 2 hours right now.
So again, like there's always a way, and the only however, I will preface this by saying I'm working with Finn McKenty of the Punk Rock MBA. I took his social media accelerator course.
Nice. There you go.
Which that's money I put into, but I'd been watching his program for like a year or two, so I really saw a consistency as far as his information and what he puts out there before I actually decided to pull the trigger and, take him up on his services. But also everything that, I go over in his course also can be applied to my chefing career and to everything else too, which
beautiful.
Is why I did it, because I knew, okay, if I take these principles and apply it to everything I'm doing, then if I spread the costs out between all those projects, then you know what, this is totally worth it. So,
and you invested yourself, so you knew you were going to actually do it, and you did it, and now you're applying it. And of course, when you say, you're not making money, it's always starting off like that. You're going to start off like that. However, by applying these methods and the channel grows, you're going to becoming more available to be profitable. You can actually start, when you're talking about t-shirts and stuff, your t-shirt business, Mike said Teespring, he shot that out there. You don't have to go buy a bunch of merchandise now. You can drop ship it, have it attached to your YouTube channel, and right below it, you'll see these products pop up that you want to make with your logo. You get the graphic and you put it on there, and boom, now people could start buying, and they don't have to buy, bulk. It's as needed, right?
So what the reason why I brought up the whole idea of being cheap, but also still be willing to invest into yourself and into the knowledge that you seek and all that stuff, is mainly because if it wasn't without that mindset, I wouldn't be where I am today. Because again, started restaurants on shoestring budgets.
All around a budget.
Yeah, I've had to staff a restaurant on shoestring budgets when we first started because we just didn't have enough money to pay more people to work for us. And we had to build up to a certain point to have enough staff. I'm just kind of applying those same principles to everything I'm doing now. And, I need to mention that while I'm not profiting all on these other ventures, if it wasn't for the principles that I'm applying to these new ventures now, I wouldn't be where I am today to make enough money to be able to allocate funds into those things. So it's all relative, and it all involves one another. But the main principle is you have to put the time into it, and you have to be pursuing the knowledge constantly.
100%.
When I'm watching my daughter, while she's doing remote learning, if I know that I don't have enough time to really dive into my emails, I'll start reading articles on things like, how to cheaply do something. And I may not apply it until months later. But again, like all the YouTube videos that I watch, concerning about marketing and stuff like that, I do it while I work out. Like I'm just, I'm doing it. I have the YouTube video about marketing on in the background, just every minute.
It's amazing. Like I run 3 different businesses pretty much at this point, between being a financial advisor, doing a bunch of other stuff. And literally I'll find myself in my car reading articles in Forbes or something like that, or delegating emails or doing whatever. People are always like, oh, I don't have the time. No, you just don't allocate the time properly.
That's all. That's really what it is. And then, you're talking about there's nothing wrong with binge watching on Netflix or something. That's great. Just make sure you do something first so you reward yourself later, and you can really enjoy that and know that you actually did something to push that football down the field that much further. And that's really it, man. You don't have to be so fucking hard on yourself. I'm not saying like, gotta plug into the system, man. No, but like seriously, take your shit seriously. If you're gonna do it, let's do it, and just learn something, apply it. Watching
4 hours of TV yesterday, I literally was just like, holy fuck, am I tired? And I've just been cranking it out for weeks on end. And Sundays I'll do rehearsal, and then Saturday.
Guilty for watching watching TV 4 hours yesterday? You feel guilty, don't you? Like if you don't work out, you feel guilty?
A little bit. And yesterday I just felt like it was really well deserved, and I ate an entire pizza on myself. So it was like a Tuesday, and it was like a
yeah, buddy.
It was a Tuesday in every aspect.
The house of gluttony.
Yeah, total glutted. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, please,
no.
I did reply a few emails while I was watching TV during the morning.
Yeah, I found, as many of us are Star Wars fans, I'm not like the crazy, Greedo shot, like there's some that go pretty far with it. But I've been meaning to see Mandalorian for a minute.
So good.
Okay, so thank you. So Saturday night, after I was done editing this week's episode, I literally watched the first season top to bottom. Amazing. Amazing. I was like, no, we're gonna save the second season till next week, chapter 9.
Just wait, because only 4 episodes of the second season.
I know, I saw that, and I was like,
platform is it on Apple?
Disney Plus.
You have Disney Plus?
Dude, you get it on your phone.
No, I know, but do you have it now because that show was out on that platform? Oh, okay.
And there's the Simpsons full seasons on there. There's a lot of stuff on Disney Plus.
I only got Disney Plus because it came free with the Verizon.
So same with Sprint. So essentially, I don't pay a dime for it.
Oh, okay, nice. So yeah, there you go. When you talk about getting the bang for the buck, that's a good bang for the buck. But listen, let's
Mandalorian, totally worth it.
I don't know. I just heard of that like last week, and I'm like, what? Dude,
I'm always going with the fat man. Let's just put it that way.
We're going to have to wrap it up. So I think there's a lot of good nuggets of information. I learned a lot. Mike.
Yes.
You learned a lot.
I learned a ton, dude. Always learned a ton.
This guy's pretty impressive.
I follow Tsao every day. Like I look forward to his Instagram actually, because it's either something about futon parts, or I go, what the fuck is that shit you got there, dude? It was like, dude, what was the thing? Yo, I got to ask you, what was the thing last night with the music class?
music class?
Yeah, you were like, I caught it real quick and then I missed it because the story expired, but it was like you playing guitar in like a music class.
Oh, no. That was just a picture from Westfall, and I was just kind of talking.
Gotcha.
You don't know too much about gear anymore, but
Yeah,
this is what I.
we've been trying to get Anthony on, literally, since this podcast started. That's how busy that guy is. Him and Vinny.
He is always cranking it, always hustling. That's another reason why I love him so much.
Yeah,
but,
he's a good dude.
I'm also a pretty forceful guy, so when I want something from him, I just kind of badger him. I basically borderline punish him.
There you go. There
Nice.
you go. Now I know what to do to him. Lepardo, I'm coming for you.
Yeah. Borderline punish him until caves in. Because if he's already your friend and he loves you, he's not going to love you any less, even if you punch him.
Exactly.
Frank Castle.
There's a lot of Buddha in his life.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of Buddha in his life.
He will still be your friend after relentless punishing.
Yep.
Good to know. Well, he's in the industry.
Dude, he's like, you get. We'll have Anthony on the show, man. He's amazing. You'd love him, Greg.
Great.
Brian Tsao, chef.
No.
Amazing to have you. I think next time you and I should share our turkey recipes, but I think time is up, as they say.
Well, the reason why I was a couple minutes late was because I was making a quick video about how I brine my turkeys.
Nice.
Okay, thank you. So for me personally, my recipe comes straight out of America's Test Kitchen, where you cut the spine. Yeah, where you cut the spine out of the turkey, and then you take all the dark meat off of it, and then you cut the thigh bones out of the dark meat, and then season it with sage, pepper, and salt. Truss it back up, put it in the fridge, and then brine the white meat.
Yeah,
for like 6 hours, and it's amazing. And then let all the juices drip into the stuffing underneath.
Yeah. Holy shit, that sounds fucking. That's way more involved than my recipe, but you're gonna see the video maybe even
awesome.
Tonight, so you're gonna see me and
Me
how
and my girlfriend are gonna go down your YouTube videos and start watching them because she's like a foodie as well. She loves cooking. So we're gonna watch those.
Thank you guys. Thank you for having me. This was a
Always.
lot of fun. It's been a while since I've just kind of kicked it and talked a lot of industry and marketing shit with people.
Amazing. Hey man, give my best. By the way, give my best to Vaughn Lewis though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Talk to him.
Vaughn said hi.
Oh, good. I love Vaughn.
I told him I was coming onto this podcast, so he
awesome.
Make sure to say to you that he said hello. So
hola. It's been many years.
Cool, guys. Thank you again, and let me know when it comes out, and I will make sure.
We're gonna probably, honestly, and I'll cut this part out. So I'm gonna probably plan it so it comes out that Friday before the 8th.
Oh, fuck yeah, perfect. Awesome.
And then maybe we'll have you on
State of the Union.
State of the Union the Sunday before.
Yep.
Oh, wait, I would love to. I would
promote the single and stuff like that.
Awesome.
That's a great idea, Mike.
Yeah, if all of management and PR likes that idea, we would love to do it.
I mean, even though I managed and have a PR company, I basically call most of the shots. Actually, sorry to keep running on, but
no.
Weeks he mentioned like the band has to make the decision and the man facilitates. So I basically call all the shots and get advice and input, but I make the decision. So I'm gonna go onto your fucking podcast.
All right, good dude. We'll see you on the 6th.
I'll see you guys.
All right, Brian.
Brother.
Care.
Go pee.
Oh my god, I'm pissed my pants.
Oh, well, anyway, guys, it's been a great episode until Greg had to go pee. We'll see you guys next week, and thanks for coming to the Combine.
Right.